Good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll have sessions until 5:15. At the close of today, we'll give away door prizes, so you must be present to win. And then come back for the special interest groups from 6:30 to 7:30. Those will be Women in GIS, GIS Leadership, GIS Early Career, Enterprise, and Natural Resources Environmental. Be sure to check out the NCAUG merch on the conference page. All proceeds go to the scholarship funds. And all sessions will be recorded to put up on the NCAUG YouTube page after the conference. It does take time, so please be patient. And welcome, and thank you for attending the ArcGIS Online Solutions for County Reappraisal session. Our speakers today are Lucian Stewart and Nick Hafley from Chatham County Government. Lucian is a solutions engineer. He completed his MGIST at NC State in 2020 and his BA in Geography in 2013 at WVU. Lucian has 9 years of GIS experience with positions in the private industry, as well as state and local government. Nick has served as Chatham County's MIS and GIS Director since December 2020. He previously served as GIS Manager with Chatham County since February 2015 and has held GIS roles in both the public and private sector, including time with Geocom, Branch County, Michigan 911, and Atos North America. Nick is a 2004 graduate from the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, where he earned a BS in Geography with an emphasis in cartography, remote sensing, and GIS. We encourage you to enter your questions in the chat box, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. For continued GIS for education credit, please make sure your name is correct on your Zoom login, and please fill the exit poll out at the end of the session.
All right. Thank you for that introduction, Dale. As she said, we are with Chatham County, North Carolina, and I'm here with Lucian Stewart today, and I'm Nick Heffley, and we want to thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about how Chatham County utilized Esri technology to assist our tax staff with the 2020 tax revaluation process. We were able to leverage our county's investment in GIS technology to more efficiently serve our citizens and optimize our internal work. I'll give just a brief overview of our GIS division and MIS. We currently have 5 full-time employees within the GIS division, which is part of our larger IT department. We operate as a centralized enterprise GIS with users spread out different departments across our organization. We have a large number of what we would call GIS champions in our different departments that promote the usage of GIS within their own everyday departmental needs, and then we serve the larger infrastructure needs of the county as a whole. Some of our major department responsibilities include GIS server and database maintenance, parcel editing, GIS web application development and maintenance, and administering our ArcGIS online content and administering that as a whole. This project that we're going to talk about today was born out of a pretty significant relationship that we have with the tax department. Like a lot of other GIS departments, tax information has always been a major component of the services we provide. And so we've fostered that relationship over the years, and then was able to bring that together to do this project with the tax department. This project was primarily started or driven out of requests from the tax revaluation contractor and gained some traction with buy-in from our tax administration staff. I'll give an overview of the different components and technology solutions that we utilized. And then Lucian will expand on those a little bit more. The first 2 components that we implemented were a photo collection Survey123 form and also an online appeals form, which both of those utilize Survey123. And then the 3rd and 4th components, we utilize an operations dashboard and a web app builder, which we call our comparable sales application. Both of those were built with web app builder. And the comparable sales application was really driven out of a need for easy access to meaningful sales information. The comparable sales application had been conceptualized years prior to this project, and this gave us an opportunity to really focus on that and implement it as part of the larger tax revaluation project. We use primarily a consumer off-the-shelf or COTS development model, utilizing Esri's apps, utilize ArcGIS Enterprise, Survey123 Web App Builder. And then we also extended the app functionality by using some custom Python code in a few places, which we'll talk about. Primarily that was used in the comparable sales geoprocessing tool and in the custom renaming script tool for renaming our photo attachments. We also utilized some Office 365 tools, Power Automate, and also shared mailboxes. We utilize Power Automate to automate our email process for the communication of the appeals forms. The first thing we'll talk about is the Survey123 fieldwork photo collection. The photo collection form was the first component implemented as part of this project in 2019. And it was really heavily utilized by the tax revaluation contract staff. They took over 100,000 plus photos in the field, but it was just a really basic photo collection form, as you can see in the screenshot. Really all we were requiring is a parcel ID and a property address. We utilized that to validate if we had data entry errors. So we had both. We could validate, okay, well, they entered the wrong parcel ID, or the property address isn't matching up, etc. We did require some AGOL licensing, which we had as part of our enterprise licensing agreement with Esri for the tax revaluation staff. The form supported multiple photos per survey submission. And that's important because we'll talk about the photo extraction process next. We did learn some lessons with the implementation of this, which we will get into in our lessons learned later on. So after as the tax revaluation staff was collecting this data in the field, it was processed to a hosted feature service associated with the Survey123 form. And then we had the task of moving that from the cloud to on-prem as well, and then also renaming those photo attachments to meet the unique file name standards that we utilize in our web applications. We accomplished this using a custom Python script tool. What this Python script toolbox we actually found I found in some code, or found the code in an Esri forum, and then customized it a little bit to meet our needs. But really it was just kind of plug and play. It iterated through the photos and renamed using the parcel ID that was collected in the Survey123 form, and added a related ID, or the attachment ID from the related table. And that gave us a unique photo name for each parcel, because we had multiple photos for specific parcels, so we couldn't just name them with the parcel ID. Downloading the data from ArcGIS Online was somewhat cumbersome. Found that working in ArcGIS Pro with the hosted feature service directly within ArcGIS Pro worked better when downloading that data. And so now I'll pass it over to Lucian, and he's gonna talk a little bit more about some of the other solutions we implement.
All right. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with how tax appeals work, I'll briefly go over the process in general, and then I'll discuss the GIS solutions that we put in place to facilitate the process this year in Chatham County. So at the beginning of each year following a countywide reappraisal, every property owner in the county receives what's called a change of value notice. And this just presents to them their new assessed value, which obviously has a relationship with what their final tax bill is going to be. So this also provides them an opportunity to appeal the value that the county decided on for their property. And with that, they need to be able to provide documentation to support a new value, whether that be a separate appraisal, done by a fee appraiser, or additional photos that speak to the quality of the property, etc. So Survey123 really provides a perfect solution for this, because on the user side of things, it's platform independent. So really anybody with an internet connection can log on and submit an appeal. And then from a development standpoint, these forms are relatively easy to stand up and get out there on the web. And Most importantly, the data that is collected through the form is populated into a hosted feature service, which allows us the opportunity to develop some applications for viewing and interacting with the data that was submitted by the citizens. So we utilize Survey123 Connect. There's also a Survey123 web builder. There's just a little bit more development flexibility offered in the Connect application. We wanted to take advantage of that to make the user experience a little bit easier. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to be able to pull in parcel information based on the user's parcel ID number. And Survey123 Connect allows you to publish the form with a CSV lookup table. So we created basically just a CSV file that contained various fields that we wanted to auto-populate into the form. So once the user enters their parcel ID number, the form can dynamically populate things like the owner of the parcel, as well as the vacant or improved status, whether or not the property is residential, commercial, etc. And then another thing that we populated in that CSV was the X and Y values of the parcel center. So that gave us the opportunity to actually plot the property location on the back end. And we set that up using the GeoPoint field. So that's just the formula there. It just concatenates the X and Y. And it does all of that on the back end so the user doesn't even see that the property is being mapped in the process. So another advantage to using Survey123 is the ability to set up webhooks. And webhooks are really useful because you can provide confirmation emails when the form is submitted. So as soon as that citizen hits submit on the form, they're provided with a confirmation email with dynamic information from the form submission. We used Microsoft Power Automate to set this up. I think you can use other platforms as well. That was the license that we had. So in Power Automate, you can just select Survey123 as an app connector. And then at that point, you're prompted for your username and password for ArcGIS Online. You can select your form, and then from there, you can pull that dynamic information from the form. So that's the setup you see there on the left, and then the email there that the user received is on the right. So in Chatham this year, we received 1,673 appeals, and those populated again to a hosted feature service as point locations. We created a process to pull that information down nightly as well, just to back it up and have it in 2 different places. And then that gave us the ability, having that in the hosted feature service gave us the ability to create an application to view that information in real time. So as soon as an appeal is submitted, it shows up on the dashboard application, which I'll go over next. So we wanted to give our appraisers and our appraisal contractor the ability to view the location attributes and attachments that were submitted for the appeals. So from there, they can set the status of the appeal as it goes along through the appeals process. They can assign the appeal to a different staff member, and then they can also interact with some visuals that are synonymous with dashboards like interactive charts, filters, etc. So we found that the dashboard theme, ArcGIS Web App Builder, was actually a better template for this rather than just a full-blown operations dashboard. And the reason for that is because that supported an editing widget, which gave our appraisers the ability to actually edit the records. So we've prepared a video demonstration that shows the citizen's experience in submitting a form, as well as the appraiser's experience in reviewing the appeal.
This video will demonstrate the citizen's experience in submitting an appeal on the Survey123 web form and the appraiser's experience in reviewing and maintaining the appeal record in the dashboard application. The user begins by entering their parcel ID number and then pressing the Click Here button to populate the form with parcel information. Configuring this second parameter was a workaround to stop Survey123 from auto-filling the fields following each digit. At this point, the parcel center point has been plotted on the back end. The point is hidden from the user. The applicant then fills out additional information regarding their appeal, including their contact information, appeal type, basis of appeal, etc. Note, many of the form questions are dependent upon parcel attribute values that are in the CSV. For instance, a residential appeal will prompt different questions than a commercial property appeal. An improved parcel will prompt for different information about the improvement. Lastly, the user can provide attachments to support their appeal. Then they click to confirm to agree to a few statements, and then they sign below and click submit. Within seconds, they receive a confirmation email via the Power Automate webhook. Internally, the appraisal group receives a confirmation message regarding the appeal submission as well. And now the appraisers can view the record in the dashboard application. Appeal record status is a critical attribute for appeals management, and for that reason, the info summary widget on the left contains status categories associated record counts. Appeals can be filtered by status as well as many other useful attributes. To further explore big picture statuses, the chart widget can be used to quickly visualize work progress. A handful of other charts can be built through this widget as well. It was important that the application serve as a one-stop tool for both visualizing the big picture and maintaining single appeals. The search toolbar can be used to zoom to an appeal of interest. Here, the appraisers can view information submitted regarding the appeal, and they can use the Maintain Edit widget to maintain the record. So here, they can select the appeal and select a status for it, add notes, additional attachments, etc. These ArcGIS Online tools provide a powerful integrated platform for Chatham County to manage appeals in 2021 and beyond.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my mouse. Okay, so also at the beginning of this year, we wanted to launch a publicly facing comparable sales application. It made sense to do this with tax revaluation because citizens can use this to actually find evidence to support their appeals, or they can just use it to confirm the new assessed value that they've already received. So having that transparency was really important for the appeals process. And it was just really important to get this out there to our real estate community in Chatham County. So the front end of this application was built using ArcGIS Online Web App Builder. And then the back end is supported by on-premise web mapping services, as well as a geoprocessing service that we created to support the comparable sales analysis. So finding comps is really similar to appraisal in general. It's kind of a process where it's not totally perfect. It's subjective in nature. But we did ask our in-house appraisal staff as well as our appraisal contractor for input as we worked on developing this tool. So we came up with these parameters for defining what is comparable to a subject property. And that was the year built range of the improvement, the building square footage, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, parcel acreage, and then also just proximity. So we created this tool in ArcGIS Desktop using Python script tool, and then published that to the web as a geoprocessing service. And in the application, we exposed that geoprocessing service with two different widgets. The first just requires the user just to simply enter their parcel ID number or the address, and that just runs with the default parameters that are built into the tool. To handle some of that subjectivity that I discussed earlier, we also created a more advanced tool where the user can actually tweak those parameters. And this is generally helpful in finding sales that are, sort of bizarre properties or really large properties, etc. So we create another video demo here that goes through the user experience of using the comparable sales application. So we'll go ahead and play that now.
The Chatham County Comparable Sales application was launched in 2021 just before change of value notices were sent to citizens. These notices inform citizens of their new tax appraisal value and of the tax appeals process. To support their appeal, appellants need a tool to easily find sales of properties similar to their own. The application assists citizens, in-house appraisers, and the greater real estate market of Chatham County in exploring recent property sales. At launch, the user may use the map to navigate to the property or simply search by address or parcel ID. Sales prices are labeled on the map to focus the application and provide a quick visual of prices in the area of interest. The parcel pop-up provides basic information about all properties shown on the map. If the property has a sale, the user is instructed to toggle to view data pertinent to the sale, including a link to the deed. The user is also provided instructions on how to use the main tool provided in the application. To explore sales comparable to their property, they can use the Highlight Comparable Sales tool or an advanced version of the tool, which provides them the opportunity to tweak some of the analysis parameters. The advanced tool is useful in locating sales in rural locations and/or vacant properties. But for most properties, the basic comparable sales tool provides plenty of records. The user simply enters the address or parcel ID number. The map zooms to the market area, which by default is a 1-mile buffer surrounding improved properties and a 3-mile buffer surrounding vacant properties. The output symbology helps to emphasize recent sales and properties with multiple sales. The user can explore sales on the map by simply clicking the highlighted sale and viewing pop-up information. Or they can view sales records in the attribute table. Summary statistics of sales amounts provide minimum, maximum, and average comparable sales prices. To further guide big picture property sales exploration, users can use the filter or query widget to hone in on sales of interest in the county. Property type, property vacancy, custom date ranges, and presence within a subdivision are provided as attribute filters. Many of these parameters are also present in the query widget. However, the query widget returns attribute results in the side panel, allowing the user to easily navigate to properties of interest with just a click. To provide transparency, the info widget contains all of the parameters of the comparable sales analysis, as well as textual and video documentation. This tool assisted the 2021 reappraisal and will live on to support the broader needs of the real estate market in Chatham County.
All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nick to go through some lessons learned as we develop these apps, as well as some future developments that we have in mind.
Thank you, Lucian. Like Lucian said, throughout this process, we definitely ran into some things that presented some challenges and also some things that we learned along the way. So we just want to share those with people if they're looking at implementing something similar. Primarily, the first thing that we ran into was the renaming and organization of the photos within Survey123. Created a little bit more work on the back end. We kind of rushed into that part of it, I think. So instead of thinking that part through, where we could have made our life a little easier on the back end by adding, one of our ideas would be to add a field to identify like a main structure. So as the field staff is in the field, they could identify a main structure photo. That would help us to automate some of the renaming of the photos on the back end. Additionally, we were looking at hopefully Survey123 would support dynamic renaming of photos. Unfortunately, at the time that we implemented the solution, and as far as I'm still aware of, Survey123 doesn't support that, but it's possible that it does. I haven't looked at it in a while, but, and also storage requirements for photos is something to think about. We took over 100,000 photos, or the field staff took 100,000 photos, so that adds up pretty quick. It's just a requirement, to think about storing that on the cloud, in the cloud, or on-prem, or whatnot. Additionally, we had hoped, and we actually did work it out, to use some JavaScript code in the Survey123 appeals form to be able to stop people from submitting multiple appeals. I think with a lot of the public in general, they get antsy if they don't get instant feedback, or if their browser cache hangs up. So we had instances where people were submitting multiple appeals. Unfortunately, when publishing Survey123 as a public form, that JavaScript code does not work. So that's something that we'll be thinking about moving forward. Also, appeal forms, or Survey123, the limitations on attachment file size is limited at 10 megabytes. So just something to think about. And then just like the email logistics, you're going to get a lot of feedback from the public. We had 1,600 and some appeals that were submitted. And when we set up the Power Automate workflow, we had that set up to a shared distribution mailbox for GIS. We should have just thought about that ahead of time and made sure that those responses were going to the tax department instead of GIS, because we just had to do a lot of forwarding of emails and inquiries. And the biggest thing that I learned is throughout this whole project, initially when this was conceptualized from our geoprocessing, the geoprocessing widget, I was hoping that we could do this all out of the box, model builder. But there are some limitations with model builder. It really took us like 95% of the way with our geoprocessing service, but we did have to implement a little bit of custom code on the back end there to make it really work the way we wanted it to. And then looking ahead, how we're going to build on this moving forward. Like I said, we want to be able to make sure that we can block duplicate appeal submissions. What we have now in our comparable sales application is a really awesome tool that the public can use in between tax revaluations. So we want to make sure that we continuously update that sales data, which we will. We already have some Python stuff on the back end that will give us the last 3 years of sales and keep that data current. And then property listing integration into that app. We thought about possibly trying to tap into some public APIs if available, whether it's Zillow or Realtor.com, and bring their data into our application if it's possible. And then I think the biggest thing looking ahead is developing a tax revaluation hub site, and we'll work in conjunction with the tax department on that. That'll allow us to promote awareness and transparency in the tax revaluation process. Also create a centralized hub for people to go and access these data and maps. So those are some of the things that we're looking at looking ahead, and some of the things that we learned. And we can certainly open it up for questions right now. We appreciate you guys sitting on this presentation, and we appreciate your feedback.
Thanks, Nick and Lucian. That was a great presentation. Does anyone have any questions? You can type them in the chat box.
Yeah, so I've been answering some of the questions in the chat box.
Notice that. Yeah.
So if anyone has any additional questions, let me I'll share my email address here too.
I've got it up on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lucian beat me to it. He's already got it up on the screen.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's great.
And we'd certainly be happy to share any of the code that we use to implement this. We're always excited to work with the GIS community, and so feel free to reach out to us individually if you have any other questions, or put them in the chat box, and we will answer them as best we can.
Thanks, everyone. Just want to go ahead and make sure that you, for continuing education credit, please make sure your name's correct in your Zoom login, and please fill out the exit poll at the end of the session. And if you have any final questions, please type them in the chat box. Thanks. Well, thanks everyone for attending. Have a great rest of the session.
Thank you all.
Thank you.